All right. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. We are excited to talk about Campfire Stew, Fort Worth's Girl Scout Troop 11 with author Linda K. Wood. Please post your questions about our discussion in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the program. So I'm going to start by introducing Linda. She is a charter member of Brownie Troop 11 and has remained involved with the Girl Scout Troop throughout its long life. She is a member of Los Alamos Writers Group and American Christian Fiction Writers and has been the feature writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, assistant editor of the Austin-based Texas Medicine, and a technical writer-editor at Los Alamos National Laboratory. She grew up in Fort Worth and currently lives in Los Alamos with her husband, whom she met in 1965. She has 2 children and 3 grandchildren, all who live right here in Texas. So welcome. Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, the book, and then reading a short passage?
Yes, thank you very much, Jennifer. Well, as she mentioned, I did grow up in Fort Worth. I've lived 51 years outside the state of Texas, but I'll always be a Texan. As they say, you can take the girl out of Fort Worth, but you can't take the Fort Worth out of the girl. Now, all my friends from other states will tell you that that's true. That they will attest to the fact that I'm still very Texan and very Fort Worth. So, but they put up with me anyway. So thank you all. Campfire Stew is the story of 20 extraordinary women that I have been privileged to know almost all my life. We started, as Jennifer mentioned, as Brownie Troop 11 at Oakhurst Elementary School in 1949. We stayed together all the way through public school. We graduated from Amon Carter Riverside High School in 1961, and we have stayed friends ever since. There were 28 of us altogether, but some moved away, some dropped out for whatever reason, and so, but 20 of us have been friends basically all our lives. Let's see. Okay, we've lost 4 to death, so there's 16 of us left, and we get together 2 or 3 times a year, and we have an email loop that we stay in touch. So we just feel like we're really close in touch all the time still. Okay, let's see. We stayed together for the first 12 years because our incomparable leader, Mrs. Minnie Ruth Elrod, wanted it that way. She really, really wanted us to stay together the whole time. And so that's the first 12 years. But the next 60 years we stayed together because of one scout who was determined that nobody would get away. And her name was Carol Capps Stedham. And she has amazing organizational skills. She has determination, and she has, most of all, the love for all of us to keep us together all these years. And we're very, very grateful for all she's done over all the years. Campfire Stew is a metaphor for the troop. Every girl would bring, it was one of our favorite dishes when we were growing up. Each girl would bring a can of vegetable, a can of corn, a can of tomatoes, a can of pinto beans, a can of green beans, whatever. And we would brown enough hamburger for everybody, and we would put chop up potatoes and brown them too, and onions and brown them too, and then we throw it all in a great big pot and cook it on an open fire. It was utterly delicious, especially out, camping in the outdoors, and in the cool, and it was just a very favorite dish. Well, we're like Campfire Stew in that we're good by ourselves. Each one's good by herself, but you put us all together and we're all so much better. so, so that's the story. And several years ago, Wanda Elrod Crowder, our leader's daughter, Cohen said, "Hey, don't you think we're kind of like Campfire Stew?" And we thought, yeah, we are. So now we call ourselves Campfire Stew. The girls and the women of Troop 11 are very, very different. They have different ideas, different abilities, different politics, different personalities. Of course, and they're all very strong and strong-willed, and they're very intelligent and very competent and very confident and spunky's a good word, comes to mind. And so I'd like to read just a little bit of a little passage that might give you an idea of what we're like. It's from chapter 14, but you can't see it. Oh, I wanted to show you the back. This was us in 1953. We had just flown up from, as they called it, from Brownies to Intermediate Girl Scouts. And this was us at our 70th reunion 2 years ago. Okay, destination Savannah. It is Thursday, April 18th, 2013. Girl Scout Troop 11 has decided to celebrate our collective 70th birthdays by traveling together to Savannah, Georgia. We are going primarily to visit the birthplace of Juliet Gordon Lowe, founder of the Girl Scouts of the USA. We are making the event a 4-day weekend. 7 of us are gathered at Terminal A of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. 3 are meeting us in Savannah. 2 who are supposed to fly with us have not arrived. It has not been a morning without stress. Marilyn Ball Murray has failed to show up. We frantically try several times to phone her. Finally, she answers. "Is it today?" she asks. "I thought it was tomorrow." The rest of us wilt like fresh cut flowers out of water. Is there any way she can get to the airport before the plane leaves? She lives in Burleson, Texas, just south of Fort Worth. But our plane has been delayed because of stormy weather. Maybe she can make it. Failing that, can she get a later flight without being charged an exorbitant fee? We wring our hands, shake our heads, and moan. I get a hot flash and heartburn. Soon Marilyn calls back. She has checked her ticket and it is for Friday, the next day. She has made her reservation for the wrong day. We are relieved that she has a scheduled ticket, but sad that we will have one less day with her. And she will have to travel to Savannah alone. However, she will get to come, and she won't have to spend any extra money. Most of us are retired. We understand about budgets. Adding to our stress is the fact that the stormy weather has delayed Mary Stoddard Hit's flight from San Antonio. We worry that she won't make our Savannah flight. All of us have knots in our stomachs. DFW is one of the country's largest airports. Getting from one terminal or gate to another can take a long time. When we are requested to board the plane and Mary is not yet with us, we grab our belongings with heavy hearts. It's an American Eagle flight. The small plane holds 44 passengers. The 7 of us make up almost a sixth of the group. Troop 11 members, most seated in a bunch near the middle of the plane, as mentioned in previous chapters, has never been known for our soft voices or reticent behavior. Everyone in the plane can hear what we say. We are entertaining, the entire audience. Wanda Elrod Crowder announces to everybody near us, which is just about everybody, that we are a Fort Worth Girl Scout troop that has been together for 64 years. She is certain that our fellow passengers will be suitably impressed. Some act as if they are. We commiserate with each other, craning our heads every few seconds to see whether Mary has boarded the plane. When we finally see her come through the entrance, we burst forth in cheers and clapping. Mary turns red, apparently embarrassed, waves at us, and falls into a seat near the front. Not too far from us, of course, because it is a small plane. The plane takes off. Soon, the lone flight attendant comes to take our beverage order. When she gets to Diane Crawford Hill, the following exchange occurs. Diane, we have lunch reservations in Savannah at 1 o'clock. We were late departing. Do you think we'll make it? Flight attendant, looking at her watch. Ma'am, I doubt you will. Diane, well, in that case, I'd like a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake, please. Diane has spoken loudly enough to be heard throughout the cabin. Everyone, including the flight attendant, laughs. Yes, Girl Scout Troop 11 is headed for Savannah. The town is accustomed to Girl Scout visitors, but it ain't seen nothing yet. As you can see, they're spunky, they're funny, they're quite a bunch.
I loved that section. It was very funny. Can you tell us how this group of women have influenced your life?
Well, they've just always been there. They were there when I was a young child and my parents were divorcing. They were there when I got married. They were there when my mother died. When I walked into the funeral chapel for my mother's funeral, there were 2 whole pews of girls of Troop 11 Scouts. They were there. They held my hand across the miles when my daughter was fighting cancer. One of them, Karen Hudson Draper and her husband, came out when my husband and I were celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary, and they came out to the celebration. They've just always been there, and every single one of the women can tell a similar story. We've just always been there for each other, good times, bad times, whatever. I think that, today's teenagers that talk a lot about BFF, best friends forever, I think they don't really understand what best friends forever means, but I do think Troop 11 women do.
You frequently mention that your troop accomplished major Girl Scout milestones together as part of the keeping you together, such as the curved bar pin. Why do you think it was important to your leaders that you do it all at one time?
Well, Wanda Elrod Crowder says of her mother that she was all about no girl left behind. She wanted it to all be equal and all be fair. Now, what usually happens, the curved bar was in our day what is now the Gold Award. And it's similar to when a Boy Scout achieves Eagle Scout rank. They do one big project and that meets all the requirements. And when they finish that project, they get awarded their Eagle Scout. Well, Mrs. Elrod, and that was pretty much true then too. When you reach curved bar, you got your curved bar. But Mrs. Elrod didn't want that to be the case with Troop 11. So anytime we reached a milestone, including the curved bar, we had to do it all together. And so if a girl reached her requirements first, she had to wait till all the others reached their level and the requirements. So it was very unusual then. It's very unusual now. Oh, it was so unusual then that when it happened, we got our pictures in the Fort Worth Star Telegram. It was, it was, but that's just one of the ways Mrs. Eldron and our assistant leaders were outstanding, just outstanding. So, yeah.
So do you think that because you guys were achieving those things all together as a group, that's part of what helped you stay together as adults?
It could be. It could be. I hadn't thought about that before, but it could be.
I really think it's interesting that you guys became Ship 11 and that there was abilities to become Mariner or Aviator Scouts. So, first of all, can you explain what a Mariner and what an Aviator Scout is? Because it's my understanding that those don't exist anymore. And then how you guys decided that you were going to choose the one that typically require lots of water, which we don't have.
Well, it was in 1958. We were sophomores at Amon Carter Riverside High School. And, well, we were teenagers. We were female teenagers, and we were North Texas teenagers. Therefore, very style conscious. And a lot of the girls were getting upset about the senior Girl Scout uniforms. They didn't like them, and they didn't want to wear them. They didn't want to be seen in them, etc. So, the complaining was so vociferous that we thought that she thought that the troop might fall apart, and she didn't want that. Remember, she wanted us to stay together for 12 years. So she figured out that maybe if she gave us some other options, we would be happy. So the two options that she offered us, I don't know whether there were others. She offered us Mariner Scouts and Aviator Scouts, and we talked it over, and we considered all the pros and cons. And what determined it was that we really liked the Mariner Scout uniforms. We didn't know anything about sailing, but we loved the Mariner Scout uniforms. So we picked Mariner Scouting. Now, it was naturally, you're supposed to do a lot of sailing. You're supposed to learn a lot of nautical skills, etc. It was developed, the program was developed, had to have been on the East Coast, where there are big rivers and an ocean, and the Girl Scout headquarters is in New York City. So, I'm sure when they got our application to go into Mariner Scouting, they went, "What?" I mean, this group in landlocked Fort Worth wants to be Mariner Scouts. Well, but they approved it. And so here we go, trying to be Mariner Scouts. We couldn't do it on those beautiful tall sailing ships that they have over there in the East, but we could do it on small sailboats, and you know what I'm talking about, and canoes. So we were able to fulfill all the requirements, though. We did it on Eagle Mountain Lake because that's where Girl Scout Camp Timberlake was. And so we became full-fledged Mariner Scouts, and we just pranced around in our uniforms and felt so cute and so pretty. And Mrs. Elrod was happy that we were going to stay together 3 more years.
Well, so we have a comment. Amy Webster says, "My mom says the Mariner uniforms were absolutely the prettiest of the two. A nice blue."
It was a royal blue sailor collar with white piping, black ties like you see sailors wear, and a pretty little white sailor cap.
I love that. I think that is great. And I just really think it's funny that you guys learned to sail in one of the, not, and of course now we have lots of lakes and we do lots of boating. So it's not that unusual, but it is kind of different. So do you know what you had to do to be an aviator scout? Did you actually like learn how to fly?
I don't, surely not. I don't know. I really don't. Maybe so. Maybe so, because my son was in Civil Air Patrol in high school, and he did actually learn how to fly small planes. So I guess it wouldn't have been absolutely out of the question. I know we did a field trip to what was then Carter Field. It was it's now, I think, the headquarters of the American Airlines Flight School, and we thought about it, but we love those blue uniforms.
So I'm going to ask another question that someone's answered because it kind of goes in with some stuff that we have been talking about. Hold on. Because the next question I was going to ask you is about what was the biggest thing that you learned or that shaped you from your time with the troop?
Okay. I'm going to have to go with two things. One thing was that our leaders were, and by the way, we had one assistant leader that was with us the whole 12 years too. Her name was Mrs. Thelma Steele. She was Martha's mother, and she was excellent also. So, and then we had two assistant leaders that were other assistant leaders that were shorter term. And one was my mother, Mrs. Esther Killian, and the other one was Karen Hudson's mother, Mrs. Jeanette Hudson. And they were all wonderful. We were so blessed with amazing leaders. And so anyway, our leaders had all these great ideas for a great diversity of ideas. and we could learn a little bit about a lot of things. And then we could decide what we wanted to explore further or what we wanted to go, no, thank you. And so one girl, for instance, is a nurse. One woman became a nurse. And I think she got her ideas of what nursing was like when we were nurses' aides at Cook Children's Hospital. And then, and for me, I've been some kind of a writer all my adult life, fortunately, and I was been so privileged. But when I needed to write an article or think up interview questions or whatever, I have had a place to start. If it was about astronomy or photography or whatever things we did, I could start with this little bit of knowledge I got in Girl Scouts. So I've always been so thankful for that. And I think we all are. But even more important, our leaders taught us that we should love each other and that we should get along with people that were different from us, and that we should care about and help people who were less fortunate than ourselves. And I think all of us still practice that today. Two things, we do things individually, but two things that we do together as a troop is that Karen Hudson Draper took the lead on this, and we have a Minnie Ruth Elrod Endowment Fund. It is for Girl Scouts who are less fortunate and need help with affording summer camp. And we started with $10,000, and every time we have an appropriate occasion, we contribute, and so it keeps going. The other thing is that at our elementary school, Oakhurst Elementary School, there's a darling little, brand new little Girl Scout troop. And some of them need help financially, affording their uniforms and their other supplies. And then we sometimes, so we're helping financially, but we're also, when we can, helping with meetings and going and helping with in person. And of course, I live in New Mexico, so I've only gotten to one meeting, but oh, they're so adorable. They just grab my heart like crazy. So, so that's what we're doing. We're still paying it forward with Troop 1216 at Oakhurst.
I love that. So here's a question from an audience member. I love the title with its layered meaning. Is there another book coming? And yours was a very transitional generation with goals stretching from traditional to career. We're in a very different time in history currently. What words of wisdom would you pass along for those who find themselves in transition, work from home, raising children and grandchildren in a complex world?
Wow. Okay. I guess right now I'm working on a novel. It's an espionage, a romantic suspense that takes place in Los Alamos. As most of you probably know, Los Alamos is home to Los Alamos National Laboratory, and it's one of the premier weapons laboratories in the United States. They do a lot more than weapons. Like they were part of the Genome Project. They're part of the Mars rover project going on right now. So they do lots and lots and lots of things. But one of the things they do is weapons. And so as you can imagine, a lot of people want some of those secrets. And so that's what the book's about. It takes place in the 1990s. Okay, what was words of
Pearls
wisdom?
of wisdom.
No. I will tell you that things have changed a great deal. And I thought someone might ask, I mean, I keep talking about how outstanding these women are. And I thought somebody might ask about what have they accomplished. And so, first of all, I want to say that most of them are mothers and grandmothers, and some of them even great-grandmothers, mothers by now. And they think that is the most important thing they have done. But let me tell you about some of their accomplishments. We have one woman who has a PhD and a THD, a Doctor of Theology. She is an ordained Methodist minister, and she has been vice president of a college. We have another woman who didn't quite finish her PhD, but she has multiple college degrees, and she has been women's athletic director at 2 major universities. She, while she was doing that, her teams, her volleyball team, her softball team, and her gymnastics team all won national championships. And she has her own sports company, sports clothing company. We have another woman who has multiple college degrees who became assistant to the dean of the graduate school of University of California, Berkeley. We have another woman who was head of security at General Dynamics. We have 3 women who were public school teachers. One was for many years a teacher at Pasco High School in Fort Worth, and one who was an elementary school teacher and librarian at 3 different Fort Worth area elementary schools. We have 3 women who are accountants, and one was even accountant at Leonard's department store, which I'll love to get to talk about later if we get to it, and was one of our favorite places. We have several women who have owned their own businesses. One owned her own engineering company and was a consultant to construction companies about gas and electricity. One still operates her own architectural placement company, and another one has her interior design company. We still had another one that had her own clothing design company, Jones of Dallas. So, and then, and I know I'm leaving some out, but then there was one who, with her husband, owned a housing construction company, and they won many awards on the design and construction of their houses. And she also writes romance novels. And and then there's me, I've done writing all my life. So you can see the variety, the difference. And so we've all had careers of some kind. But we've all considered that our family responsibilities were our most important. So I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to balance it. And I words of wisdom, no, not really. But I know I was a stay-at-home mom for until we started having to pay for college. And that's when I went back to work at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And well, I don't know. I thought those were very productive and wonderful years. So I would say, do what you're feeling called to do. And if you want to stay home with your kids, do it. And if you want to try to balance it, do that.
I think that's great advice, actually. In the book, you often talk about scribbling down information about the history of the troop during reunions. Can you talk about what made you want to publish that history as a book?
Well, about 7 years ago, I think it was, I woke up and realized I was living in the middle of an extraordinary story. I felt that, well, on 3 levels, the scouting level, the friendship level, and what was the third one? I don't know. Anyway, I felt that, the Fort Worth level, that too. And I felt that people ought to know about it. I ought to know what we had accomplished together as friends. And so, and of course, I love to write. So I started getting the information together. All the women helped me. They sent me pictures. They sent me, the book's full of pictures. They sent me all kinds of materials, and then they would write me and tell me things that, this is what, do you remember this? And I didn't. So they would refresh my memory. And so, it was a labor of love, really. And I wanted people to know that about this wonderful thing.
So, and I loved all the pictures in it. The pictures in it really kind of touched on kind of some great things you were talking about in the story and tied everything really together. So I really enjoyed being able to see the pictures as well. So one of our early questions was, what resources would you recommend for an aspiring writer?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. There are a lot of books out there, and there are a lot of things on the internet, a lot of courses you can take. Romance Writers of America has 2 courses every month. And they're not just about romances. They're things like, how do you shoot a gun, or how do you, all these things that you have to write about in books. So, or how does the FBI work, or, stuff. So it's a lot of things that are good for more than romance writers, but they offer these online. Of course, I majored in journalism. I always wanted to be a writer, but my mother insisted that I do something that would support myself. And so I chose journalism. So I took journalism and communication all the way through high school and college. So So that, and then writers' conferences. Depending on what you want to write, you can just about find a writers' conference for any of it. You can, there are fiction writer conferences. Writer's Digest has a humongous writing conference every year. And so you can pretty much find whatever you're interested in there. Oh boy. And then get into a writer's group and have people critique your work. I think that helps, and then finally, write.
And I will say that the Dallas-Fort Worth area has lots of writers groups. You just kind of have to do some internet searching and find ones that are near you. We have some that are just based in Fort Worth. We have some that are based kind of in the middle between Dallas and Fort Worth and Dallas. So just some good Google searching will turn up tons of those. And I would also add that the library does a quarterly writers workshop. We choose a different topic every quarter. So our next one will be in May, and we're going to talk about writing satire, particularly like for magazine type writing. And so while they have a topic, they do kind of have some basic get started things you need to think about with writing. And the previous two that we've had are on our YouTube channel. We recorded them and posted them, so you can watch them. The very first one was the basics of fiction, and the other one, which was in February, is about editing. It's specifically geared towards poetry, but it's editing, and the teacher who taught that actually did a lot of writing exercises during the class. So kind of some interesting ways to think about getting inspired. So I'll kind of do a plug for us as well. And before I get to some of the rest of these questions, I'm going to ask you the last prepared question that I have that I know that you're dying to answer. So one of the parts of the book that I really enjoyed was the discussion about how Fort Worth has changed and Fort Worth's history. Can you talk about that?
Well, Fort Worth has changed a lot in 72 years. One of the big ways it's changed is the downtown area. When we were growing up, there were several large department stores. We're talking full city block, several stories. And there was Cox's, Monig's, Stripling's, The Fair, Meacham's, Washer Brothers, JCPenney. and there's another one that I want to really talk about, my favorite, a little bit later. But a bunch of us would get on the Fort Worth City bus before we were driving on. We'd go down to Sylvania Street, get on the bus, and ride downtown, get off, shop from store to store to store to store, and they didn't all have, but most of them had tea rooms. We would have lunch at one of the tea rooms, and then we'd shop and shop and shop all the way back and ride the bus back to Oakhurst and go home. Well, so I loved all those department stores, but my favorite was Leonard Brothers. And it was it was owned by Marvin and Obie Leonard. And there's a whole book about Marvin Leonard, by the way. And so it covered several city blocks. It had a farm store, a grocery store, and a photography studio, an automotive department. It had everything, plus all the things all the other department stores had: furniture, clothing for the whole family. They even had a pharmacy. It was fantastic. And then one thing they had, the main thing they had that was completely unusual, they had a subway. And out on the outskirts of town, I know one entrance was from Henderson Street. And I forget where the others were, but they had a huge parking lot. And there were 3 stations where you could go and catch what looked like a railroad car, but it would, and so you would take it in. It was called the M&O. It was named for Marvin and Obie. And you would take it into Leonard's basement and get off and go do whatever you need to do. And you could park free and you could ride free. When I was working part-time at the Fort Worth Star Telegram, I would park in Leonard's parking lot, ride the M&O in, and walk down to the Star Telegram, and then come back and ride home. And so the closest thing I can think of today to Leonard's department store is Walmart. But I personally have not found a Walmart that sells tractors, and I certainly have not seen one that has a subway. So it was a wonderful time, and I miss all those department stores. But of course, that's another era, because all the department stores have gone suburban. So, and what of them are left? And then I want to talk about the changes in the public library. When we were growing up, there was one downtown public library, period. It was a triangular shaped building. I loved it. I camped out in it. I mean, you talk about getting on the bus and, I loved it. And I camped out there as much as I could, but there was only one. Now they had bookmobiles, and I don't know how many there were, but I know that one came to Oakhurst Elementary School every 2 weeks. And I was there every 2 weeks, and I would take out as many books as they'd let me take out. I love the bookmobile. I think I've been in 5 of the branch libraries, and they're wonderful. Oh, how wonderful they are. But they didn't exist when we were growing up. And, we had to spend a lot of time in the library because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have computers. So we had to do our research in libraries, in print books, and we had our encyclopedias, and then we had to type our term papers on typewriters, not computers. So it was a different age. And that was true for me all through college. I never had a computer till later.
So we actually have photographs of the M&O in the local history collection. And then, so that original downtown library, I can't remember exactly where it was at, but that's the Carnegie building, right? And then when we moved into the facility that we are actually still in downtown, but when we first moved, it was there was a parking lot on top, and the downtown library was in underneath. Part of the and we actually used to connect underground to the Tandy building that used to be next door, which is part of where the railway went. So there was actually an underground tunnel between the downtown library and the Tandy building. The tunnel is still there, but it's blocked off. You can't, right? There's a wall there now. And then they built the top in the 80s. So now downtown is two levels. But as of the beginning of this year, we actually have 17 locations now. And
wow.
One that's currently under construction. And then we have an additional one that they haven't broken ground yet, but they're doing the architecture part of it at this point. So within the next 2 years, we'll be at almost 20 branches. So 20 locations.
Fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. It's wonderful. Oh, and I want to mention one way that Fort Worth has not changed. It's always been and still is a very friendly city. I know a young woman who grew up here in Los Alamos, New Mexico. And she went to college in Texas. She married a Texan, and now she lives in Roanoke, which is, if you don't know, is a suburb of Fort Worth. And she loves Fort Worth. She goes on and on and on about how friendly Fort Worthers are. And I quote her, she says, Fort Worthers even drive friendly. So congratulations, Fort Worth, on staying the friendly place you've always been.
All right, I'm going to read you some. I don't think we have a lot of questions, but we have lots of great comments. So let me roll back up here. Hold on. Okay. So Melanie, can't see everybody's full names. So Melanie said, Linda, you have the most amazing memory. Your cousin, Melanie. And then she also posted when you were talking about kind of how you guys were all together. Girl Scouts Forever, that is our song. Winding the Old Trail, Rocky and Raw and Long. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
And that her Girl Scout friends were and still they're very good friends since they graduated from high school in 67.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then someone else worked at Lawrence Livermore 30 years ago and knew your husband.
Oh! Wow.
And then, so I'm sure if you all had voted on aviation, you would have found a way to be up in the air in no time. Sounds like one factor in your staying together for so many years was all the grit and determination, along with love that you have. Thank you for sharing your story. Somebody else thinks this story should be a documentary. And then Gussie Patty, our book club read this and we absolutely loved it. And we loved the pictures too.
Great.
And let's see, then I have another question over here. Oh, and then somebody else says, no question, just hi, Aunt Linda from Nick.
Oh, okay. Hi,
Nick. So is there anything you think we should have talked about and we didn't talk about?
Oh, wow. I don't think I mentioned the strong faith, Christian faith that all the women have. We all grew up in some sort of Christian church, and so we have this prayer loop that we lean on. We put it out there on our email loop, say, oh, hey, please pray about this. And everybody starts praying about it. And we have this wonderful support group. So I don't think I mentioned that. And I wanted to say that.
And I just love how you guys are all still kind of interconnected in one another's lives. You're doing trips together,
Trips.
I think that's really great. Somebody else, and I will have to say, the trip that you wrote in the book about Carlsbad Caverns, was it Carlsbad? Yes.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Somebody else, Roxanne Welch said, wonderful story. Thank you so much for sharing and staying together as a Girl Scout troop. I will be passing this on to my troop girls, and I can't wait to read the book. And then we've got lots of hellos. So Paul Wood says, hi from Sarah and Eva. And Diane Hill says, as a member of Troop 11, we are also proud of our Linda.
That's sweet.
And then we have Joe Kilborn says hello and that she misses you. And Patty and Bill also have really enjoyed your presentation. So I also have enjoyed this evening, and I loved the book. It was great. And, I'm really glad that we finally got to do this because everybody who's watching may not know this, but Linda was actually supposed to do an in-person presentation in the beginning of the summer last year. And well, life happened. And so, we were really glad that we were able to kind of reschedule it and that you were okay with doing it online. So, and I am very glad that everyone joined us today. and thank you. And if you are interested in purchasing the book, and if you don't have a copy yet, there are copies available at the Dock Bookshop. They're one of our local independent bookstores. I have their contact information up here. They are, you can order online, have it shipped to you. You can order online and pick it up in the store. You can call her and pick it up in the store, or you can just show up. So she's really flexible. And then we also have a lot of author events that are coming up well into the summer. So if you go to our website, fortworthlibrary.org, and you can click on the calendar. If you click on the dates here, that'll show you what's happening just on that specific day. But if you go to the bottom of the calendar and you click search all programs, then there is a link at the top that's author visits and book signings. And if you click on that link, it will give you a list of all of the author visits that we have upcoming. And we're constantly updating that. So thank you for coming. Linda, thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's been great. Thank you for all you've done.
You're very welcome. And you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.